I did like, you know, the changes that I made. So on the left hand side here, when I look at this, my eye goes to this handle that's on the teapot.
Yeah.
And this is not where the subject matter should be. The subject matter is not the handle. It's supposed to be this beautiful apple here, or this pear down here, and then we should then be attracted more to the teapot itself. So what I did is I cropped it off at the top, and I darkened the background behind the door, the teapot handle, and therefore now it disappears.
Thank you.
And our eye goes to the teapot, and I also blended from the dark to the light on the teapot, and now we see the apple, although I didn't change the apple at all.
Well, a little bit. The apple looks bigger, and there's a little bit of white on the side. It looks really good.
Oh yeah, you're right. I changed it a little bit, but basically,
looks great.
Sometimes a small change will make a big difference.
And the pear looks different too. A little bit. Maybe it's the way you cropped it.
Yep.
Yeah, I do like the one on the right.
Yeah.
I like the one on the left too, but I love that one.
So this is another example. Just go like this, where I had painted the seahorse on the left, but I thought it was a little blah, and there was a lot of different colors, and it wasn't too harmonious. This yellow here that was in the middle, yellow ochre, there was no other area anywhere in the painting that had this color.
Yeah, you're right.
So
wow.
It broke the harmony, and also I wanted it to be more about the seahorse than the grass, the blades of grass behind it. And so that's why I decided to make the seahorse a little bigger, and this yellow ochre disappeared behind this yellowish brown, and now this is very harmonious with the other colors on the seahorse. It's even harmonious with this blade of grass that's behind the seahorse here.
And the salmon color, I love that.
Yeah, and I made the color of the seahorse, I made it more of an indigo, which is closer in terms of complementary color with the Indian yellow. You know, that's here.
Right.
So little changes can make a big difference.
Because the first one, your eye just goes right to that green.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, yes. And in this one, although I didn't change all that much, but in this one, it works. Another example.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I can see the difference.
So, I mean, I didn't have a very good photo at the midpoint, so that's why it looks a little distorted on the left. But this was midday. I was cold. I was hungry. I hated it. I didn't want to finish it, but I had driven all the way to Marblehead to paint this painting, and I was there with two other guys, very advanced and very professional painters. So I didn't want to look bad. So I kept with it. And I saw this grass here, these leaves that are in the lower left corner. They were much lower in the garden. And I said, well, these would be a good lead into the painting. So I decided to add them right here in the lower left corner. And that invites the viewer to actually look at the lovebirds. And the other thing was the fence was not working at all, but behind the fence, it was just a street. I thought that was very boring.
Yeah.
But the color of the fence, the picket fence, it was just wrong. So once I changed it to a very warm color, now it became harmonious with those little birds that are brown, a very warm brown. And then it all came together. And this color that's on the fence, it's almost like an Indian yellow. And if you compare it with the street that's behind it, the street is kind of like almost like an indigo color. So it's two color. So it works a lot better. And then it all came together, and I finished the painting, and I also was able to eat, so I was not hungry too much anymore. But I
Love
was
that
going to
picture.
scrap this painting. I had already decided I was going to scrap this painting, but I had to continue because I had nowhere else to go, and I didn't want to look, like the not so good painter. in this
Right.
Wow.
I'm glad I finished it. This one is another one I painted
I
in
see
plein
the
air. When I started painting in plein air that day, it was beautifully lit, sunlit by everything. But by the end of our painting session, after 2 or 3 hours, it was all gray because there was no sun anymore. But I liked the sun. So then I looked at the photo and I re-added the sun, and look at this.
What a difference.
Yeah.
Wow.
And seeing the shadow of the tree
Yes.
that comes across the little.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And you can see the flowers more.
What
Yeah.
month was that?
This was in April, I think. It was during the pandemic, the start of the pandemic.
Those look like forsythia.
Are they?
I don't know.
They're
This was
beautiful.
wild flowers.
Yeah.
You couldn't see them as
That's
well
the
over here.
cultivated plant.
It's beautiful. Oh, I love this one too.
So this one you've seen before. On the left, one of the things that I didn't like was this tree here on the far of the picture. I thought it would look like an afro, and I had started painting it a little bit. And also this tree on the left, it was coming forward very much because it was so big. So that's why I decided to make it smaller and bluer. And now it looks like it's further away than the one on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Same with the afro tree. See, I moved it a little bit and I made it smaller and blended more its color with everything else around it. And then I added a little car here to give a sense of scale.
Oh, yeah.
Another one right here. And the whole sky, although it was beautiful with all these clouds, it was very busy. And I
Yeah.
thought it was a little too busy. So I removed some of the clouds, only kept a little bit. And I had
Unbelievable.
started lowering the bottom of these windows here because the angle was incorrect with the perspective. And here I put the bottom part. Whoops, sorry. The bottom part, there's like a little cement block. And the fence, see the fence was disappearing here on the
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And then I repainted it and made it appear like it's a fence with, like, so. And then the other fence here on the left was crooked, so I straightened it. I didn't touch the water, but the water looks better on the right-hand side.
Well, tell me again, what did you do with the windows?
All right, so I'll show you bigger.
Perspective, right?
So can you see here the window, the line of the window that I had originally?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this was, the angle of this was incorrect and the windows were not quite tall enough. So I changed the angle and I lowered the bottom of the windows. And then I re-added, see at the bottom of the window, there's this little cement blocks. I re-added that.
So how did you know the angle was wrong?
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. How'd you know the perspective was off? Doesn't look off.
All right.
Just a sense.
That's advanced knowledge.
No,
Yeah.
this is something that I did teach that in another class. So let's say I go like this. And then I'm going to put some lines, insert shape line.
Boy, that's incredible. What is that?
That's PowerPoint.
Wow.
So if I add a line like
Uh-huh.
this.
Those look familiar.
Our vanishing points.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I love those.
That was a great exercise.
It is a great exercise. So I've learned.
I learned a lot from that.
Now we can see this. And then if I take this at the bottom here. follow the angle. So now my vanishing point's right here. Oh, this is in the way. So if I were to make it a little bit bigger, you could see better. Oops. Okay. So
Yeah.
so if I follow, you know, the angle of the roof and the angle of the other thing. So this is where my vanishing point is, right here. Now,
Dave,
oops.
Soft?
Yeah, Janet is no longer listening. All right. So if I follow the, are you with us, Janet?
You're muted.
So if I follow, you know, the angle that I had here, see how it doesn't fall in on the vanishing point? This line here, it doesn't meet where the two other lines meet. So the
Right.
angle's wrong. So in order for it to be correct, the angle should be like this. See
Yep.
how the line would be incorrect? But I had to lower it as well. So if I lowered it, and I put that here, meeting the other ones, pretty good. Now the angle's right.
Yeah, I see it.
wow.
So that's something, I mean, the vanishing point concept applies for any building that you do. And I apply it myself when I paint.
So you use the PowerPoint to check your angles?
No, I don't need the PowerPoint,
Okay, you just
You
know.
can just look and know.
but you can use two rulers, you know, like you
Yeah.
have your painting in your hand. So you can use two rulers and see where they meet, and then move your ruler to another area and see where it meets. So for example, let's see, okay, what about this? This is supposed to be also match the angle. So does it meet our,
Mm,
yes, it does. See the bottom, it meets. So it's
That's
good.
fascinating.
Yeah,
What about the tree?
the tree doesn't follow that.
Doesn't matter.
No. But this, we have this this other fence here. Pretty close.
Wow.
And then there is also this other one.
the sidewalk.
Yeah, right here.
Right there.
Pretty close. It's a little incorrect. It should be more like this. Right now it's like
It's damn
this.
close.
Yeah, pretty close. But this is the unfinished painting that I took. So if we go back to the painting that I actually did finish, which is this one.
I love that.
So and then, you know, with the sidewalk and, you know, sometimes it does veer. I mean, sometimes it's not straight. So you have to also take that into account. Like this fence here, it actually goes down a little bit before it continues straight in reality. So it's not because I just made a mistake and
No, it's an old fence.
yeah, it's the fence was built that way.
Yep.
So you have to take that into account. So anyway, if we continue with, oh, this one, Leslie knows this one very well.
I do.
Yes, you do.
Oh, I do. I have it.
Yes.
I love it. Yep. have it
Oh,
My front room. Yep.
So this little painting
Beautiful.
I had done, you know, I had painted it the first draft in plein air, and it looked like this, which was pretty good. I thought it had potential, but this whole little roof area here, pointed roof area, looked a little flat, and the porch looked like nobody could ever go down this because it looked too skinny. So I changed the porch, and I also removed my name here and I put it on left. I had a little bush here.
Nice.
And
love it.
I added this line to the roof line, this here, which defines this roof so much better. And in the foliage, I added some green and some darks
Brought it out.
because there were darks and greens there. And then the shadow is better defined. See this shadow here?
Yes.
And then there is also some shadow
Oh,
on
wow.
this part of the wood part
Nice.
of the roof. And see this here, there's shadow because it's underneath. And
What
the
a
shadow.
difference.
Yeah.
Wow.
So little, and the shadow here on the right hand side is also different. And I made the window that we only see a little bit of a little lighter because it's not supposed to attract the attention too much. So anyway, little things like that will make a big difference. And I mean, this painting could have been considered finished, but with these little things, these little differences, it made it so attractive that Leslie could not resist.
I love it. I love doors. I'm a door freak. Oh, I love this one too. Oh,
So this is a watercolor.
violas.
And in a watercolor world, you know, people say, oh, you can't change it. Once it's done, it's done. Well, sometimes there is a way. So I didn't like this little square platform or table that it was sitting on. And I decided to make it a round table. And even though we can still see a little bit, you know, the square platform here on this side, it doesn't bother me. It could be like there was this, you know, this long extra tablecloth on top that's just straight like this, like what do you call it, a train or a rail? No, I can't remember the name in English. And in the process, see this flower here? So on the left here, this flower, its stem is almost in line with the table, which doesn't, it's not great for composition. Whereas now, because it's not in line with anything, now it looks a lot better. This flower that comes down to the table. And I darkened some of the greens in the water and also between the flowers. See how there's this white flower and this light lilac? Well, I didn't change it from here. What I did is I changed around and I made it darker, a little bit darker around it.
Oh, yeah, it makes everything pop.
I mean, it's a big difference on those two.
Yes.
Especially the table.
Yeah. So it's always possible, even with watercolor. This is another example. So I had painted it on the left with a yellowish background, thinking that a whole warm background with the table that was warm would work really well. And then at the end, I changed the background to make it a wall, like the wall was like a very light purple, and voila, it all came together.
Oh, better.
So much better. And I think the actual painting,
Like two different things.
the actual painting is somewhere here. Now I can't find it, of course, because I'm looking for it. Oh, it's over there. I'll show it to you. So stop share. Ultimately, I changed the table too, and I made it a round table.
Wow.
Look how it all came together.
Beautiful. I love the
Nice.
shadow.
I do too.
Yeah.
The combination of the colors.
And I put a little flower here on the table to kind of like,
Yeah,
I
the
love the
green,
glass.
gorgeous.
yeah. So sometimes, even if you don't like the painting, there's, especially with acrylic, you can change it and change it and change it and get to this.
So
titanium white, primary yellow, alizarin crimson is our red, and ultramarine blue. So if your palette is not ready, now's the time to prepare it. And if you don't have water in your bowl, you should get water in your bowl. Is we're taking our painting of the tree that we had started and we are going to finish it.
Okay.
So no, to answer your question, no, we don't need to draw it because we already have this.
I misunderstood. I thought maybe we were gonna draw a new one and put it into a landscape.
That's next Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
because you guys asked me about the watercolor class.
Yeah, we get you all screwed.
We're going to finish our tree.
Okay.
Sounds
I
good?
got it. I got it.
So today we're going to finish painting our tree. And we are aiming for something that looks like something like this. So one of the things that we will have to do is we will have to refine the way that we have painted the foliage and give it more shape. And the other thing is, see how we have the little twigs and the little branches, some of them over here. We haven't painted those yet. And I painted even more, but they all disappeared under the leaves. And some more little branches in this area that we haven't painted yet. I think we're going to start with that. So to paint the twigs in acrylic, so you can of course you could paint with a little piece of cardboard like this,
Yeah, I
like
have a
we do
watercolor.
in the watercolor.
Yep.
Or you can try and use the blade of a palette knife if you have one. You can also use a brush, like a flat brush like this. Once it's wet with paint, it gets very skinny. And to do these little twigs, I recommend that you paint with very watery color. So mixing a color of the color that we're going to use to paint those twigs. So what I recommend that you mix to do that is try to mix a purple. To make a purple, you take some of our ultramarine blue, some of our alizarin crimson. Mine's a little dried up. So that gives me a nice purple color. Let's see if I show you to the camera. You also want to have it watery, so I've added water by dipping my brush into the water, and gives me a nice deep color like this. Now to this color, if you want it to be a little bit more brownish, you could add just a tiny little bit of yellow. Just a little bit, not too much. And then in my case, it kind of gave me a little bit of a, so it makes the purple even darker. If you put too much yellow, it will not give you this. If you put too much yellow, then this will happen. Then it becomes more of a green. But if you
Right.
just put a little bit of yellow, it will give you a nice, deeper, darker color that will be closer to black or very deep brown. So this color here that I have, you have to make it watery enough. And using my flat brush, I'm going to create some of those twigs. And those twigs will probably, for most of them, be painted over. Now, on my tree, I'm going to put this away. So on my tree, I have some of these branches, like this one, for example, and one can think that it's going up here. So I'm just going to continue it right here, like this. And then I dip my brush in the paint every time in between each one. So I have one bigger one that goes this way. So I'm gonna paint this one from here. And then
Using the side of your brush?
yeah, I'm just using, like, say I do it on here. I just use the side of my brush like this. Let's see if I go like this, maybe you'll see. If I go like this. It's like 45-degree angle, and it gives me these.
Okay,
You see. So if I go like this, just to show you,
yes.
gives me this. And if you have like a very small round brush like this, you can try and using this one as well. But I'm just going to use this, just continue. Now this one here, one can think it's growing like this. So I'm going to put it here. This one goes here. I have one here. Now, I said that you could also try and use your palette knife if you have one. Now, this is a little trickier. If you don't feel comfortable, don't use this one. But basically, you have to imagine that you are painting. You are painting with, like, with the blade. Oh, the blade of the palette knife like this. It doesn't always work. See how thin it gave me that way, very thin. So that's one thing that you can try and do. So for example, if I were to put one here, doesn't really work very well. See, gave me this. So with my nail now, I'm just gonna make it all together. Anyway, but we also, I showed you also and we practiced that earlier in class, I think, trying to paint with a little bit of a cardboard.
Yep.
So make sure you have enough paint mixed up. So I'm going to mix up some more of my purple down here on my palette. Nice purple, a teeny little bit of my yellow. Gives me a nice deep color. Make sure it's watery enough, like so. And then I'm going to use a cardboard to demonstrate this time. So using the cardboard, I'm going to dip it into my watery color, and I can put my twigs like this.
Yeah, I think it's a good tool.
So some of them will be a lot thinner. Makes it interesting. And after you dipped it into your paint, that's when it's going to be the thickest. Now this one here, for me, it's a little too thick, this one here. So I dip my brush into the water. I'm just gonna drag it along the side like so to make it a little thinner. So this is a little tricky to do.
You're just doing a dry brush.
Yeah, well, I did dip it into the water and I dried it on the paper, the water,
The towel.
the paper towel. And it gives me a little bit of a different finish because you see how it has like this line on the side. So, but I like that. It's just different. So if I continue painting with my little cardboard, then, you know, if it gives you too thick of a line at first, you can first tap it on the paper towel, and then you can come and tap it on your painting. And it gets very thin. Little lines everywhere.
On the paint.
Now, let's say you paint and it gives some lines that appear on your foliage. That's okay, because when we paint the foliage, we can cover that. So now I have all these branches like this, but I didn't put So now I'm going to use another kind of cardboard, one that is thinner, to do thinner branches. I have one that's very, very thin. It's cut out from a gum package. And with this one, which is very, very thin, I can do thinner branches like so. Ooh, did not give what I wanted. That's okay. Remember, with the cardboard, you can even make your branch round. You can give it an angle. And in the case of this tree, our background, we're keeping the white of the, the white of the canvas for the background. So let's say you're doing something that is not what you want, then you could always add a little white on top to correct it. But when you're doing a tree, there's usually either a building behind it, or maybe there is a mountain behind it, or maybe there is the sky. So you could repaint the sky or the building or whatever is behind it. Excuse me. So at this time, I've added all my twigs like so. And maybe you're not quite finished and you need a little time to finish it.
Well, my tree. Yeah.
So using this very dark color that we just used to do the twigs, I'm going to use my small brush. So you can use either a small round brush, or you can use a flat brush sideways. Either one will do. And I dip it into my color. Now the color that we have at this time is a nice, very deep color of purple that I put a little bit of yellow in it, and it gave me this color. So it's a very nice and deep color. And on top of the already brown leaves, it will give me a very deep color, almost black. So I'm using this color because this area is in the shadow, because the foliage is casting a shadow on these branches. So as I am coming down with this darker color, then I tend to end it in a way that that is more gradual. See here, I added it right here, and then I just added it this way. I didn't cut it like with a horizontal line. So I just went like this. And then I'm going to put some more here. And then here. So these branches, so I'm outside the line. These branches are darker because there's a shadow on them casted by the foliage. Now remember also that the light comes from the left. So this part of our tree trunk remains in the light. And so you never want to put any dark on that area. But this dark that we're adding, we're not putting it on the tree trunk, only on these branches that are right below the foliage. And don't bring this dark too low. Right here, a little bit here. Not too much, just up here. There. Oops. Oof. That was a close call. All right. So, gave me this. Now Now, this was already dark, but it's a warm dark. This is a cool dark. That's what I want. Now, if anyone maybe finds their tree trunk a little too wide,
Yeah.
now what you can do is you can take some of your white. Oops, mine is frozen hard.
This is a mess.
So you can take some of your white and add some white to trim it a little bit. Now, one layer of white might not cover it completely, but you put one layer of white, and then after that, you let it dry, and then you're gonna come back with the second layer of white. So let's say I want to trim this tree trunk here on this side, let's say. Then I can just go like this and add a little white like this on each side. And now my tree trunk is there. See?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more. Maybe it's on the other side, so I can add a little bit of white to the side. Make it a little thinner. Once you've put it in, put it on, don't touch it anymore. Let it dry. So this is something you can do. I mean, it will show a little bit that you've added some white, but from a distance, it will look good. So for those who maybe thought that their tree trunk was too wide,
Oh, it's better than hell. The original drawing is not good, so that is causing me to have a problem with the whole picture.
just breathe, Leslie.
Yeah. I'm not on the floor.
Okay.
I just don't like it when it's not good. Well,
Okay. So are we done with the branches and the tree trunk?
no, but go ahead.
Yes. So to paint this foliage,
Yeah.
now what we need to paint this foliage is we need a mix of greens. And I want you to mix big areas of lime green, forest green, and also another thing of forest green with a little bit of alizarin crimson in it. So, and once it's all mixed up, then we will go ahead and paint this. So we have two choices. I can demonstrate, and then you can paint your foliage. Or if you want, we can do it together at the same time. And I like to do it together at the same time. Of course, if you guys are ready to do this.
Yeah, I need a refresher on forest green, so I'll do it with you, I guess.
Okay. So first we're going to work on mixing the colors together. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So to do the mixing, you can use the brush that you're going to paint with. So what I recommend is you have one brush for your light lime green, one brush for your forest green, and then maybe a smaller one for a darker forest green. Now, if you don't have this size brush, you just have this one, then use this one. This is a smaller one, see? Baby brush. If you have a round brush, like this, this will work. Any size brush will work. A bigger brush is better. So if you have a bigger brush, use a bigger brush. You only have small brushes, then use small brushes, but use one brush for each color.
Okay.
And so using my first brush, I dip it in the water, and then I use a lot of yellow. So this much at least, a lot of yellow like this, a teeny bit of my blue, very little bit, see, very little bit to mix with this color. the blue is very strong compared to my yellow. And so therefore you only need a little teeny little bit. So now once this is mixed, and see, I did not completely mix everything. Now I'm not going to put this brush back in the water. I'm going to hold it with my hand, take the other brush, and next to this, I'm going to make a forest green. Dip in the water, tap on the paper towel, start with quite a bit of yellow, and start with a teeny bit of blue. Not too much, this much to start with. That's a little bit. Let's mix this here and see what happens. Oh, it's pretty good, pretty good. But I want this green to be a little darker, so I'm going to use a little bit more blue. Mix it here. Now this is getting somewhere. I want even more. So now I'm getting this nice, it's a mid-color blue actually. Maybe I want even darker. So the forest green that we're getting now is made like this. And if I show you the color that so this is my forest green. And I'm not putting my brushes back in the water, just showing you. And this is my lime green. So you can see the difference between the two. There's quite a bit of difference. And now I have my two brushes. I have my dark green brush and my light green, lime green, and forest green. I'm going to use another brush. This one will be it will be a smaller brush. I'm going to use this one here for this. This time I'm going to use a lot of blue, like so. A teeny bit of yellow, like so. Mix those two. Oh, I need more yellow. Mix those two. I get a nice deep green. And I'm going to take a teeny little bit of my alizarin crimson, very little bit. All dried up. Very little bit. Mix it in here. And it gives me an even darker color, which is like this. So you can see here now I have the very light color, which is the lime green. I have the green, which is like a forest green. And when I added alizarin crimson, it gave me a very dark color, almost purple. So I have these three colors ready to go right here: the lime green, the green, and the very dark color. And now I'm going to start painting. So I load up my paint with a lot of green, see, lime green.
Yeah.
Use this. Now, when I paint, I don't paint necessarily with the tip of the brush like this. I paint with the side so I can cover a larger area. So the light comes from the left, the upper left. So this whole area here will be the color, the area that I will cover with this lime green. So now if you don't like the shape that you have for this foliage, now's the time to readjust it if you want to. I just paint on top of what I have. And I add even more paint. And now see, I'm making the foliage a little higher. And now I've covered this whole area of the lighter green color that I had. See, it didn't cover this area. Now I'm changing my brush to the nice green color that I have. That is this one here, right here, this one. That's the color I'm using now. So I'm loading my brush up with this color as much as I can. See, I've loaded it up with a lot lot of color. Now I'm gonna paint the under area of the foliage.
This is the medium green?
This is the medium green, yes. And as I'm doing this, trying not to create too much of a line in between, so I'm kind of mixing the two colors together. I need more of this color.
This is the dark green, right?
This is the mid-color green.
Okay, I don't hear good. Mid-color.
And so
Oh, that's dark. Jesus.
now I've painted this color, and now I'm using my very dark green. So that's my little brush that I have. And I'm loading it up with a lot of color again. Now this is only for the bottom part of my foliage. See how I'm only adding it on the bottom part. This is where the darkest is. So I'm not covering everything, but sometimes it goes up. Even the dark goes up a little bit sometimes, but not too much. And so now it's giving me this. Sometimes it goes up a little bit. I can always come back with my lighter green on top. Let's say I don't like this so dark. So I can come back here and mix it all, smudge it together. Gives me this. And now if I show it to the camera, so now I've painted this portion
Looking nice.
like this. See how there's no sharp line in between my lime green, my mid green tone, and the very dark underneath. That's why we're painting with 3 brushes. And this process that we just did here, we're going to do it again here and here. But I'm going to give you a moment to finish this part. And then once you're done with this part, then we're going to start all over again by mixing the colors as our first step. So in the meantime, I'm putting my brushes in the water so they don't dry up. So if you need me to re-demonstrate any part, I'll be happy to.
My lime green is ugly. What happened?
Green is ugly. Maybe, you know what, Leslie, maybe lime green is not a color that you like painting with.
Well, it's hard to, I have a hard time getting it. But I got it, I think, but,
Is it too light or too dark?
well, it's got a little bit too darkness in it, I think. And there's not really a difference between the dark and the medium. That's my problem too. The medium color is a little dark. So if I want to lighten that medium color, what should I add to it?
Well, if you want to lighten the medium color, basically what I would recommend is that you make the medium color from scratch again.
Okay,
So that medium color that's a little too dark right now,
yeah.
just leave it aside for a moment, and maybe later you can reuse it. But right now, if you lighten the color by adding more yellow, it might require a huge amount of yellow, and therefore, you're going to use up too much of it.
So it's a huge amount of yellow and a little bit of
blue.
blue.
Yeah, just a teeny little bit of blue to start with, and then if it's not dark enough, you can always add a little bit more blue. But if you go, if you go too dark from the get-go, then so now that you have experienced painting the foliage making the colors and then painting the foliage. Now you have a better idea of how much color you need for such a large area of foliage. So we're going to paint the colors again. This time, make sure you make enough to paint the whole area. So we're going to paint this second part of the foliage and this little puff here at the bottom. In my example here, I had slightly different shapes, but every time I paint a tree, of course, it's different. So starting by making our nice, I'm going to start by making the nice lime green. Then I'm going to make the mid-tone green and then the extra dark green at the end. This is how I make them. And I have my brushes that I used before. They're in the water. So this was my lime green brush. So I take it out of the water and I try to dry it on my paper towel. So to make the lime green, I use a lot of yellow. I know I need a lot of yellow to do this. And I take just a teeny little bit of my blue. See how much? Very, very little. And this is what I mix here with my yellow. It gives me a lime green, nice lime green, almost still yellow. Now this is my lime green brush. And see how I did not spend a whole lot of time mixing it. This is mixed enough. I move on to the next one. I take my brush. That was my my green brush, mid-tone. Now to make my mid-tone green, I'm still going to start with quite a bit of yellow, a little bit of blue, not too much. Mix it together. It's giving me a green that is darker than my lime green, but not quite dark enough. I'm getting a little bit more of the blue. Now, this one is now getting to be a nice mid-tone green, maybe a little darker, a little bit more blue. So now I'm getting this. I have two colors that are, you can easily see the difference between this color and this color. So this is my lime green. This is my green. And now I'm going to make this color again with my brush that I used before. Oops, I ran out of yellow. Oopsie daisy. I need more yellow. I'm out of yellow in my tube. Okay. I was able to squeeze some out. So using my other brush, the one for my very dark green, I'm going to use a little bit of yellow, not too much. Oh, actually, we started with the green, with the blue. So a lot of blue, and I'm putting this blue into this yellow into my blue. Gives me a nice deep dark green. I'm trying to mix it all together. And in this nice deep dark green, I'm going to add a teeny little bit of my alizarin crimson. Not too much, just a little bit. And it makes it a little purpley and even darker. Maybe a little bit more. All right, so now I have my three colors ready to paint with. So if I were to show you on this, this is the very dark green. This is the mid-tone. And this is the lime green. So this time, these are my three colors. Very dark, deep green, mid-tone, and lime green. And you can see how my mid-tone is lighter than the mid-tone that I had before. So at this time, I could, if I wanted to, add even more blue to this, or leave it as it is, just because having a variation is not a bad thing at all. Now I'm going to start painting my foliage, starting with the nice lime green. So I load up my brush with the lime green. See how it's loaded up with a lot of paint. And I'm starting with the top of the foliage. Try not to make it a sharp line. So that's why I'm painting with the side of the brush. And also I'm trying to make sure that the twigs are still showing in between. So I don't want to cover everything. More light on the left because that's where the light is coming from. And you know what? Maybe I'll take the time to just fix this that I didn't like. Now with this nice lime green, I'm also going to take the time to cover some of this little puff down here. Now, once this is done, then I take the green brush, which is my mid-tone, this one. I load it up with a lot of paint, like so. And now I'm going to paint this portion of my tree, the foliage. Now I'm going over this branch, which is fine. And making sure that I don't go too much to the left because that's where the light is hitting. So I want to keep that part more like in the light. And then I'm going to paint this portion. Make sure you always have a lot of paint on your brush. Little puff here, down here. You can resize your little puff if you want to make it more of a, maybe there's a branch sticking out this direction. And so now I'm going to take my darker color. So my other brush, this one here, that has the very dark color, I'm going to load it with my dark color and use this color to indicate some of the very dark shadowy color that's at the bottom, the very bottom. Maybe it goes up a little bit, but if it goes up, make sure you don't make it too symmetrical. The symmetry is a very interesting concept in nature. Now I'm going to put a little bit up here because I didn't like this, the way that it had come off originally. And a little bit of darkness down here on this little puff too. Ooh, now this is what happens sometimes. In this case, on this little puff here, I put too much of my dark color. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my mid-tone color, which is my mid-tone green. Load up my brush with the mid-tone green, and I'm going to add it on top. And it's going to remove some of this darkness that I had put there. There. Makes it interesting. Now I'm finding that there's too much of a line here. So now I'm taking my lime green brush, loaded up with lime green, and I'm creating some interesting patterns in this manner. Nice. Alrighty then. So now I can continue having some fun up here. Maybe. Now what happens if there's something that's happening and it's just like it's just impossible to make it better? Well, we could use white because we do have white on our palette. So I'm going to give you a moment to finish doing your foliage, and then I'm going to demonstrate that. This one here, I think it's interesting to have a little bit more of this darker color here, like that. Maybe a little bit like this too. Ooh, nice. Right. So now at this time,
No, that's good.
now what happens when we add white to this? So I have my brushes that I've been using. Now it's better if you're not using them, it's better if you put them in the water because now they will dry up pretty quickly. But let's say there's something that I really don't like, or I want to lighten some of my colors. So I'm going to bring some white into my mid-tone green, and it's going to give me another version of the lime green. And let's say I put it here. So that's what happens.
Yeah.
So it gives lime green. If you see here, whoops, better if I go like this. So if you see here in this area here, this is the mid-tone green where I added white, whereas this is the lime green I made just with yellow and blue and no white. So this one, it's just a different tone that it gives you, but this one has less vibrancy because the white tends to kill the vibrancy, but it's still a very interesting color. So if I continue painting with this, I can do this and just mix it up. And going like this with the side of my brush, it helps to remove, to keep the hard edges from forming hard edges. Now, let's say I put too much of my dark up here. Well, I could use more of the regular lime green that I had made, or I could use some white into my green and go and use it up there. So up here, I could add this nice lime green like this with white in it. You could also use the white into your original lime green, and this would give you something like this. So it would give almost like a yellowish color. So this is the color that it gives me. And more white will give even more of this color. Then once you have used that white on your brush, it's really hard to come back with the original color that you were using. So it's better if you clean up your brush. Before you mix it up again. So, I mean, when painting a tree, trees are so interesting. They have all sorts of beautiful shapes. But observing what you see on the photo and then trying to paint it is a good approach. Try to notice where are my really dark colors and where are my not so dark colors, and try to represent that. And the less that you use of the white, then the most vibrant your colors will be. Now I lost my white here. So I'm trying to regain that white. And when putting some of the very light colors next to the very dark color, that's where you attract the attention of the viewer. It's where you create a center of attention. So now that I've put some of the white down there, up there, then I have to have some also in the in the middle ground. We can't just be in one area. It just adds a variation. And by making the green every time, by mixing our yellow and our blue, then, you know, every time we mix it, we create like a new shade. So it makes it very interesting and makes it more believable, more like what it is in nature. Right. Now, what about this tree trunk? We haven't touched the tree trunk again.
I never want to see it again.
And so now in some areas you can see I added white like over here, but it wasn't a true white. It was always a little white into one of the colors that I was already using. But it gives some more variation to the foliage. We're trying to create a foliage that appears to be like full and round. And so therefore more light coming from the source of the light and less light on the right, which is where it's in the shadow. Now about that tree trunk. So we have that beautiful green, the mid-tone green that we have, that we created. So using some of that beautiful mid-tone green that we created, you can add just a teeny little bit of red to it. Now it gives you almost like a brown color. Yep. And you can put that on your tree trunk. You can repaint your tree trunk. And you can add to this, you can add a little bit more of the red and the yellow. This will give you almost like an orange or a lighter tone of your color. And adding a little white to it, then will give you color that makes your tree trunk a little lighter. I like to have the shadow with a little bit, the lit side with a little bit more red than the other colors, more white. And now it's giving me this beautiful color for the lit side of my tree trunk. And the shadows are never completely perfect. I mean, the sun plays funny games on you, and it will create all those patterns on the tree trunk. So allow yourself to do these patterns as well. So now my tree trunk looks like this.
Gorgeous.
So see, it's not, there's no line, and I went from light to dark, or from dark to light. And I used the colors that I had already used before. And here in the grass that we haven't repainted, I'm going to start with my lime green that we have used already. And using the lime green, I'm going to paint this section right here like this. And in front of the tree. And in this lime green, I could add a teeny little bit of my red to vary the color a little bit. Maybe add a blade or two of grass. So it gives an interesting foreground. Now it gives us a little grass.
Yep.
Like so. So this is the overall result of what we painted today.